Tech Tuesday. The latest tools to have. Mark Mastriani will join us coming up. But right now, speaking of tech, maybe you work in the tech industry, whatever kind of job you have, would you like to make more money? I can see you nodding your head yes. Who wouldn't want to make more money? And we need more money. But the key is, how do you get that? It's tight for everybody. So what are some of the clues, some of the things that you can say in a salary negotiation to get you moving ahead? We'll find out now with Dr. Tracy Wilen, who is a prominent thought leader on the impact of Wilen, on the impact of technology on society and work and careers. I would not get a raise from you because I mispronounced your name. You see, that's the first thing, is to know how to pronounce the name of your boss, right, Dr. Tracy? Good morning. Hi, and welcome. Her brand new book, by the way, is Employed for Life. Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends. And that was released earlier this year. And boy, that's a book that we should all be reading, Dr. Tracy, given this job climate that we have, even though unemployment is down compared to what it was. But we're kind of going through like an industrial revolution. It's a tech revolution, because now we can work from home, and the traditional jobs as we know them are being redefined. So if I want to be employed for life in the 21st century career trends, and I want to get more money, what do I say? How do I open that conversation? Always difficult to just say, I want a raise. Do I start that way?
Well, John, first of all, thank you for having me. And I would agree with you that we are in a new job revolution. Your points are well taken. It's, technology, entrepreneurism, self-employment, developing your own business, as well as becoming more entrepreneurial at work, are all new trends that people, need to really think about in their own career paths. But usually when you're looking for an increase in your job salary, I encourage people to, think about it, research it, and really know all your facts before you go in the door, whether it's at work or whether it's when you're pursuing a new job.
How do I find out what that job pays, or even just finding out what some of the other folks or some people who are just above me, if I'm going for that next level at work, how much they're making? That's always a very difficult piece of research to kind of get my hands on.
Yeah, and that's a good question. So if you're pursuing a job outside the firm and you're going to be negotiating for a salary for a new job, there is a lot of information now on the internet, from salary surveys, professional associations, recruiters, and even the job postings actually describe the salaries. I go to places like Glassdoor.com, Vault.com, payscale.com to really understand the range. And you can type in things, like the marketing, specialist, your zip code, and you can get a lot of information that way. And that can be useful at work as too. But sometimes at work, companies have what they call grade bands. So there's a range, and it's very predictable. You might be a level 7, you might be a level 8. So then, one, you can look on the internal website, see if they publish it. Some places do, some places don't. Talk to HR and your managers to understand, what are the levels at your firm and what's the criteria to move within the level to the next level and within the range.
Dr. Tracy Wilen, we're talking about salary negotiation. Her newest book that came out earlier this year is Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends. She's been a scholar at Stanford University, leadership positions at Apple, HP, Cisco, if you've heard of any of those little startup organizations. And we're learning about how to get a raise at work. Can we help you if you're going to have that conversation? 877-766-3777. If we can help you frame that conversation you're going to have with your supervisor to ask for a raise, or maybe you're going for that new job and they always ask you, well, what do you think would be a fair amount for this job? How to get around that? 877-766-3777. Call now. I've had that question. I've had that asked of me. Now, what would you think would be a fair amount of money for this job? How do you answer that, Dr. Tracy?
Well, this is where the preparation comes in. You really should have a range in your head, or a number in your head, that is going to meet the expectations, number one, of the firm. So if you come in too high or too low. So this is why I encourage people to do the research in advance. If you come in with a range, be really careful. The employer may not come in at the middle of your range. Be prepared to accept the lowest number that you throw out on the table. And once you put a number out on the table, they'll remember that number. So that's why preparation is really important. But there's ways, just remember, it's not just about cash. there are so many other factors that have value to people other than cash. But, if you do go in with a number, make sure you know what that number is, do your research, and make sure that it's something that they won't walk away with.
Here's a phrase that I've used, and I would just like your critique when that question is saying, now, what do you think would be a fair wage? And I always just say, I pride myself in my creativity to work with you within your constraints, within your budget. I haven't said anything, kind of a page I've taken from the politicians. I haven't said anything, but it sounds like I did.
Yeah, that's fine. What you're doing is you're deferring, and that's one of the strategies is if you're not too sure, you can certainly defer and ask for more information. You do want to clarify more about the job. And so, you're hoping that they mention the number first. Often you will also be asked about your previous salary history. And I think people need to think about some strategies there because some people may have been stuck in a firm for a long time at a lower salary level. So you may have to do more research than somebody who didn't have that experience and figure out what is the going rate. Was I so severely underpaid? And so you want to make sure you understand the going rate for that job and skills today.
And that's doing your research as Dr. Tracy Wilen is teaching us on salary negotiation at 20 minutes before the hour on Morning Air on Relevant Radio. With privacy laws being what they are, as an employer, how can I get my hands really on what you or I made in our last jobs?
Well, actually, you won't unless it's government. I mean, there's certain industries that, publish salaries out on the Internet. So if you're looking at anything in the public sector, it's pretty transparent. So then this is why I encourage people to go to vault.com, payscale.com, glassdoor.com. Not only do they have salary inventories, but you can actually look up. In some cases, the employees give input, and they say, well, I worked at Apple, and this is my range. And then you can compare yourself from, the Apple salaries versus, let's say, the Google salaries versus the, Maersk salaries. So I think it's something that you have to do the homework on. If you don't even know these websites, I would say just type in what do people make at Google, or what do people make at the company near you that you're applying for a job, and you'll be amazed at how much information will come up, not only salary, but also did they like working for the firm, did they not like working for the firm. So you can get a lot of information today.
Even though things are private, everything's public, especially up on the Internet. Dr. Tracy Wilen, we're talking about salary negotiation, her newest book, Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends. If we can help you out in getting to that next level, take advantage of Dr. Wilen's expertise right now. 877-766-3777 at 18 before the hour on Morning Air on Relevant Radio. What about when the potential employer or my boss or the HR person says, no, that's the number. That's the number we have budgeted for that job. What is the wiggle room there? Are they just playing a game? Do they have wiggle room and they're just doing the hard line with us?
Well, I think it varies by manager. I think that's why, again, the research is important. But I think it's up to you to think about things that have value to you. Because remember, you could be at a salary level and in a certain tax bracket, and then you could jump to a new salary level and the tax bracket may change where that really wasn't benefiting you, right? Because it could be a bigger piece of your overall check. So I encourage people to look at the benefits. Number one, if you're looking at a job, and say, are there things that they don't offer, like health benefits, tuition reimbursement, moving expenses, sign-on bonuses, commuting costs, stock options? These are things that have value to an individual, and it may be easier for a firm. So they may have a strict budget on what they can give in cash, but then they can give what we call cash and comp, right? Other things to make up a package for you. And at the end of the day, I think people want more than cash. They want some of these other things, and you should make a list so that you understand what do they already offer, what don't they offer, and what can I ask for that maybe doesn't cost as much to them.
And very often that information is on the corporate website as well, as they list some of the benefits. And I'm sure you could get that at Glassdoor.com or Payscale.com or Salary.com, because that's also one of those awkward moments in the conversation is, when do I introduce what the benefits are? Because there's a little bit of presumption that I have the job, or maybe I should act that way. That self-confidence may actually be a positive.
Well, the company websites will probably describe, modern-day company websites will probably describe the benefits and the value of working there. And it's usually called the career section. So before you even have your interviews, I tell people, go to the company website and look at every video on the website, every page on the website, so you know that company cold walking in the door. So you'll know if they offer health benefits or not. You'll know if they offer tuition reimbursement or not. So those are off the table then, right? So the things that you might want to think about are some of the other things that they don't have and that do have value for you. Now, for example, a lot of people accept a new job and they have to start all over again with vacation days. Right? They've accrued maybe a month or two in another firm. They walk in the door and they get 1 week. That's something you could say, I'd like to discuss vacation. Maybe in general it's 2 weeks after you've been there some time. Could I have vacation this year? It might be something that there might be child care on site, or they might have a separate budget for child care. So there could be a lot of other things that you bring with you to say, okay, well, I understand you can't make the cash part. What about this?
We're helping you get ahead, money-wise and otherwise, with Dr. Tracy Wilen, our career expert this morning. She knows of which she speaks. Her latest book is Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends. By the way, Dr. Wilen has authored over 11 books. This is The Expert. If you need to get ahead, we can help you out. 877-766-3777, 14 before the hour. We'll continue with Dr. Wilen coming up on Morning Air on Relevant Radio.
Relevant Radio is listener-supported radio.
This station has really strengthened me tremendously.
We're only able to broadcast because of your generous support.
So much fun to hear the stories of lives changed through Relevant Radio. It's really a privilege to be part of all of this, and you're part of it too. We are listener-supported.
Thank you for all the donors that have the money to give big bucks. I want to thank them because they're allowing me to get the word that I need to my children. So they're helping me with my kids too.
This is a community. This is a faith community. This is precious and rare. We cannot neglect it. We must keep Relevant Radio vibrant and growing, spreading the gospel message to the ends of the earth.
Our need is ongoing. Please call now with your
tax-deductible
donation. 1-877-291-0123.
That's 877-291-0123.
Or donate online at relevantradio.com.
Good morning.
Good morning, Marcia. I thought I heard roosters crowing in the background.
You did.
I love it.
Your phone is a radio.
Listen anywhere on the planet
with the Relevant Radio app.
Are you listening to the Relevant Radio app outside of Houston?
Yeah.
Take us anywhere with the app in New York City. Father James. Hey, Father.
Download the Relevant Radio app at your device's app store or at relevantradio.com, keyword app.
I never go to work. On Tuesday.
13 minutes before the hour, Morning Air on Relevant Radio. Just getting you motivated to go to work today, especially if we can make you more money. And that's what we're learning about from Dr. Tracy Wilen today. The Art of Salary Negotiation, Dr. Wilen's brand new book. By the way, she's written 11. She's worked for Apple, HP, Cisco. She consults all over the world. The latest book, Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends, that was released earlier this year. So we're getting some tips on how to get ahead, specifically how to work your way up, how to get to that next level at work, and how to get more money. Dan is in Chicago joining us this morning, and we're answering your questions with Dr. Wilen at 877-766-3777 at 12 before the hour. Dan, good morning. You're on with Dr. Wilen. Welcome to Morning Air.
Hi, Dr. Wilen. I was wondering, I have a lot of people at my corporation who come in and they get top wage and they think that they're equal. Is there any benefit to the employee having working your way up in progressive compensation?
Yes, so let me just clarify. So people are coming in from the outside market, and they're coming in with top wages versus someone who's working through the organization, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do there, because many people are in that situation. And firms in general, by the way, usually promote like 50% of the workforce. That used to be the metric, and then bring in outside talent for 50% of the workforce. So I think it's important to know, like, are you making a fair wage? And if not, I would open up a conversation with HR and your manager about salary adjustments. You know, my salary perhaps maybe needs to be leveled or adjusted to the going market rate because I've been here for a long time. I think it is very important that you're at the company because companies do promote people from within, but I would encourage you to keep metrics so that you can show what you've achieved and why. Because, you know, just remember, people aren't watching you. You have to watch yourself, track yourself, and bring in your metrics so that you can have that candid conversation. So, yes. So to your question, yes, go in and if you can, have I don't know your manager, obviously, but talk about salary leveling and wage adjustments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, thanks for the call. 877-766-3777 on Morning Air at 10 before the hour. Dr. Tracy Wilen, and we're talking about salary negotiation. How is the job market right now? And we've seen that unemployment is down, and it has been down over the last 4 years, but it's a very slow downward trend. And even though the number is there, you hear a lot of people saying the jobs aren't there. What is your analysis of the job market?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. In fact, I was just in Utah, and the unemployment rate was 3.2%, right? So that's low. And so I think, you know, I remember the quote of, you know, when your neighbor doesn't have a job, you're in a recession, and when you don't have a job, you know, you're in a depression. So it varies by industry. So I do try to keep on top of what industries are on the upswing. Obviously, tech and healthcare have high employment rates, as well as energy. And U.S. manufacturing is on the rebound. So there's a lot of pockets and industries where you find there's a lot of employment opportunities. Number two, it's very regional. I think depending on where you live, I'm in California, the unemployment rates are typically very high out here, unfortunately, up to 9% depending on where you live, but it could also be very low because I'm in the tech center and there's always demand. But to your question is, you know, what's in demand? Obviously, tech is huge. So if people do have opportunities to start to shift over or include technology skills, that, you know, that's where the money is, that's where the value is, you know. So if you really didn't want to have a salary negotiation, who's getting the phone calls? It's probably the computer programmer who's current on all the latest languages. You know, it's just what it is today.
And you also hear in the job market, Dr. Wilen, that you should reinvent yourself, continuing education. And that's easier said than done when you're 30. But what about when you're 50, about reinventing yourself?
Actually, I do write a lot about what I call the career makeover. And I think that people in their 40s and 50s do need to think about it because you will be living longer and more than likely probably working until you're 60, 70, or 80. And I think once you understand that, you see that in your 40s and 50s, you know, where is the direction of my job going, right? So in the media, you know, what the impact of social media, the impact of streaming video and audio, you know, what are some of the skills and that I should add to my portfolio so that I'm always relevant in my industry. Manufacturing is another one. You know, 3D printing, robotics. You know, I had a gentleman whose job was displaced by a robotic bellboy who went and reinvented himself as a robotic bellboy manager because he understood the bellboy business, but he also understood the technology in the business. And I think that's what people need to start thinking about doing.
Robotic bellboy, as in how we think of what a bellboy would do?
Absolutely. There's
wow.
There's a hotel in New York. It's called the Yotel. They have a Yobot, and it's basically a robotic bellboy that picks up your luggage, puts it in a locker, and pulls it out for you. That's, you know, so that bellboy role disappeared. Now, I read later that the individual, right, who was displaced by the technology, reinvented himself, went to the robotic company, and said, I know everything about bellboy skills, and I understand robotics. So I could be an operations manager for you, and help you sell those robotic bellboys to other hotels. And apparently that's what he did, and he's very successful at it. So he blended it, subject matter expertise plus technology, and that's what I think people need to think about moving forward.
Wow, very, very smart. How do you tip a robotic bellboy? I guess either with a can of oil or an Allen wrench or something like that. I guess it saves you a little bit of money. I don't know. That's amazing. Look what we've learned here with Dr. Tracy Wilen, talking about salary negotiation, how to reinvent yourself, simply getting you to the next level in your career, or maybe a brand new one. Dr. Wilen is joining us here at 6 minutes before the hour, answering your questions at 877-766-3777. And the new way to market myself, Dr. Wilen, I would imagine, is to make sure that I have a website, make sure that my Facebook page is clean, not say silly things on Twitter. There are so many ways now to market yourself as an entity, as a one-person business, if you will, than there ever were before.
Yes, and it's called personal branding, and I think that's very important. And I think that, having a presence helps people, because before an interview, before people hire you now, they will go look you up. So just type your name into Google and see what comes up. And there could be something in your past history that you didn't even realize was coming up with your name. So I think it is important. But yes, you can, whether it's a website or building up your LinkedIn profile or your Facebook page, to add to your brand so that you are creating a buzz about yourself, because people want to hire people who have good buzz and that have followings or positive, publishing positive things, industry expert. So there's a lot more ways now that you can really prove yourself before even walking through the door.
And Dr. Wilen, if I Google myself and I see something up there that's objectionable or something that I didn't do, but it's now for everybody to see on the internet, how do I get that removed?
Yeah, so it used to be very hard. You'd have to go back to the individual. Now the social media are adding more instruments. So, blocking people is one. You can actually now disconnect or unfriend or unlink people. Number two is Facebook, for example, has a timeline. So you have the choice now of adding something to your profile. If you're stuck with something in your past, I would go back to the source and ask them if they could please remove it. And then the other strategy that people do is keep posting positive things, because eventually it'll get so buried that it won't come up anymore.
Great advice. Great advice on social media, Dr. Tracy Wilen. All right, now, let's say I've gotten the offer. How do I respond to it? Do I jump through the phone and say, yes, I'll be right there? What's the art of actually accepting an offer?
Well, you probably have 4 choices. 1 is you can accept it. 2 is you can decline. 3 is you can counter it. Or 4, like we talked about before, is you could defer until you have more information. And I suspect that when you get a final offer, although a lot more is done on the phone today, it might be done in person. And so you can also read the other person's body language. So I think that's helpful. But if that's the offer that you want, then you can pretty much say, I accept the offer. If you were hoping for a little more, you can say, well, I wanted to think about it. Or you may already have saying, I was hoping for a little more in the salary. Can you make up the difference, at least for the first year, with a sign-on bonus? And that's a very delicate way of saying, you didn't come in exactly as I want, but I really want this job. But could you cover me, for the first year, which is the difference between what you hoped you were going to be offered versus what you were offered. Or you could come back and just say, I really want this job, but I was hoping for something in this range, right? So maybe you got an offer at $40,000, but you really were hoping between $50,000 and $60,000, and then you could say, I was really hoping for something between $50,000 and $60,000. So there's a lot of ways that you can address that offer. My sense is that companies do a lot more information gathering and pre-screening up front. In fact, before you even start an interview, you might actually be in contact with an HR screener who will ask you about your past salary history as well as share with you where the job is. So I think it's not going to be a big surprise like the Mad Men days, sliding the napkin across the table.
That's right. Although that still might work. Who knows? Dr. Tracy Wilen on salary negotiation and an empowering half hour here on Morning Air on Relevant Radio. Her newest book is Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends. TracyWilen.com. We'll put that up on our Morning Air Facebook page just in case you're a corporation and you're listening to us. You want to bring in Dr. Wilen, take advantage of this expertise. Dr. Wilen, thanks for your time this morning. This was very profitable. Have a great day.
Thank you, John. You too.
You too. Take care. Dr. Tracy Wilen this morning on Morning Air on Relevant Radio. Still to come, we'll play 3 questions. It's also Tech Tuesday. Mark Mastriani will join us coming up in the next hour of Morning Air on Relevant Radio.
Thanks for listening to this hour of Morning Air on listener-supported Relevant Radio. For information on guests and topics, go to relevantradio.com and enter keyword Morning Air. That's relevantradio.com, keyword Morning Air.